In 2001, a certain movie sped onto cinema screens and did well. It spawned 2 sequels that also did somewhat okay, and then it suddenly skyrocketed into big blockbuster franchise territory. I'm talking about the Fast and the Furious, a franchise that started out a fairly straightforward crime flick about an undercover cop infiltrating a gang of street racers. How it ended up becoming a gang, hacking cars and computers, battling terrorists, jumping out of planes and saving the world is anyone's guess. I guarantee you, nobody saw it coming way back then when they were making the original movie. The movie I'm focusing on today. The first movie was divisive. Some praised it for its style and focus on street racing. Many younger viewers of a certain age thought it was cool and hip. But the movie was not the most original thing ever because it was essentially a straight up crime thriller with cars and racing. It also made a star out of the late Paul Walker and further enhanced Vin Diesel's status as an up-and-coming Hollywood leading man. This year, the 10th mainline entry into the franchise is out, and it's seemingly setting up for what is planned to be the finale of the franchise. My guess is that the real finale won't come until the money stops piling in, but we'll see. Regardless of what you think of the Fast and the Furious, whether you think it's a generic crime movie or the start of something truly special, it's a historic movie, and there are a few things you might not have known about it. Here are 10 cool facts about the Fast and the Furious. You would think that a movie all about fast cars, driving and racing would hire a cast and crew capable of doing some of those things. Well, they did for the most part. Michelle Rodriguez and Jordana Brewster were cast in the movie despite not having driver's licenses or learner's permits. As such, in order to do some of their scenes in the movie, they had to take driving lessons during the production. Jordana, speaking on the issue, has stated that if I didn't get my license, I wasn't going to be able to get insured for the movie. Within the week of taking my driving test, we were flown to Las Vegas for this special driving class. So I had to pass, or I wouldn't be in the movie. The cars of the Fast and the Furious are nice and shiny, brightly coloured with neon lights and reflective paint. They really stand out no matter where you are. As it turns out, they didn't stand out enough, at least not for the director Rob Cohen and the rest of the crew. In some of the more suburban areas of the movie, which were shot on location, the crew asked the owners of the houses to repaint their homes with more muted colours. They hoped this would help make the cars stand out even more. Many of them did it too. I don't know if they were compensated or not, but it's weird seeing houses and not people going through makeup before cameras start rolling. Mia, the character portrayed by Jordana Brewster, was not always destined to be Jordana Brewster. In fact, there were a plethora of big-name stars and faces who auditioned for the role of Mia. Natalie Portman, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Kirsten Dunst, Bijou Phillips, Jessica Biel all auditioned for the role, but for one reason or another, they were turned down. Additionally, the role of Mia was written with Eliza Dushku in mind, but for whatever reason, she never got the role either. It must be good being Jordana Brewster, knowing you beat out a future Oscar winner, Spider-Man's girlfriend, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Dominic Toretto has a 1970 Dodge Charger sitting in his garage. That car has a history, both in and out of the movie. Throughout the movie, we see this car sitting there gathering dust until at the end of the movie, Dominic finally gathers the strength of will to drive it, right as a train is approaching. The final crash scene in the movie sees the car taking a bit of a tumble, getting destroyed in the process. Vin was fine though because he's Vin Diesel, and because he wasn't actually in the car. But that wasn't the end of that car's Hollywood career. No, it got cast in yet another movie. Yes, the very same car shows up in the 2005 movie Herbie Fully Loaded, this time as a car in a junkyard. It's a step down, arguably, but hey, work is work, you can't be too picky. The late Paul Walker was not the original name wanted for the role of Brian. Eminem was first offered the role, but he turned it down to work on his own movie 8 Mile. We also know that big Hollywood names like Mark Wahlberg and Christian Bale were considered too, but whether it went beyond that is unknown. Producer Neil H. Moritz worked with Paul Walker on the 2000 movie The Skulls. The producer reached out to Paul, giving him the script and offered him the role of Brian O'Connor. It was probably for the best. I mean, no offense to Eminem, but he's probably far more suited to be someone running away from the cops rather than playing an actual cop. Vin Diesel has become a major Hollywood star thanks to his turn as Dominic Toretto. He was also Riddick, let's not forget about that one. But some of that stardom and fame might not have happened at all because he was not even close to being the favourite choice for this role. Originally, the studio wanted Timothy Olyphant for the role. So much so, they promised to greenlight the movie immediately if he signed on. Sadly for them, Olyphant had just starred in Gone in 60 Seconds, another fast car themed movie, so he declined the role. Director Rob Cohen originally wanted Mario Lopez as Dominic as well as Dustin Diamond as Jesse, but the studio feared that bringing two stars from Saved by the Bell on board would confuse audiences. Although that would be a cool what-if scenario, Saved by the Bell meets Fast and the Furious. Colin Farrell was also considered for the role at some point. Producer Neil H. Moritz then suggested Vin Diesel, who was convinced into taking the role after some script alterations were made for him, and even though up until that point he had only ever portrayed supporting roles, not leads, and Vin was 10 years older than the character he was supposed to be playing, but nobody had the heart to point that out. There was an alternate ending filmed for the movie, as there are for many movies. This alternate ending was titled More Than Furious, and it features Tanner dropping off Brian at the Toretto house. Here, he encounters Mia packing her things, preparing to leave. Brian then reveals that he resigned from the LAPD and he wants another chance with it. She then claims it's not going to be that simple, to which he says, "I've got time." The ending can be seen on certain DVD and Blu-ray releases of the movie. The Fast and the Furious. It's a now iconic title, with each iteration of the franchise trying to come up with a new, fun spin on the title, like the sequel, Too Fast, Too Furious, or Fast 5, or Furious 6. However, the original movie was not always destined to be called The Fast and the Furious. Discussing this with Insider, Jordana Brewster has stated that, at the time, it wasn't called Fast and Furious, it was called Redline, and it was pitched as a movie about street racing. Additionally, Neil H. Moritz, the producer, revealed to Entertainment Weekly that some of its earlier titles were Race Wars, Street Wars, and Racer X. Why Racer X, you might ask? Well, there was a 1998 article in Vibe written by Kenneth Lee and titled Racer X. The article was about a Dominican street racer, Rafael Estevez, who started drag racing, and this article was the inspiration for the movie. When contacted about this by Universal, Kenneth Lee thought it was a prank. So, where did The Fast and the Furious come from? Moritz was not a fan of any of the potential titles, thinking they were cheesy. He has said that, "I went to watch a documentary on Roger Corman, who I've known since I was a kid, and there was a little section on a movie he'd made called The Fast and the Furious. I thought that's the title of this movie." Moritz then went to Universal as fast and as furiously as he could, and together they contacted Roger Corman, allowing him to use some stock footage in exchange for the rights to the title. Director Rob Cohen visited real illegal street racers in preparation for his job on this movie. While there, he enlisted the help of 200 souped-up cars driven by actual illegal street racers. These were then used in the initial racing scenes of the movie. Plus, while many of the stunts you see in the movie were performed practically, 78 cars were destroyed to make this movie. But one stunt was too dangerous to do in such a fashion. Remember that famous Dodge Charger? Yeah, it chickened out and couldn't do the final drag race across the train lines. That's why it ended up in Herbie Fully Loaded. So they filmed it twice, once with the cars doing their bit, racing across the tracks, then without the cars and with the train doing its bit. These two shots were then composited on top of one another to create the final effect. Movie magic, movie lies. Letty, played by Michelle Rodriguez, and Brian, played by Paul Walker, starred in 5 of the Fast and the Furious films together before Paul's untimely death. They first met on this movie, but somewhat bizarrely, they never speak directly to one another until Fast and Furious 6. The first direct one-on-one interaction these two characters have with one another is in the 6th movie, where at the end of the movie, Letty tells Brian, "I may not remember anything, but I do know one thing, nobody makes me do anything I don't want to do." I guess she just didn't want to speak to the man until then. It can take some time to win people over. And that is 10 cool facts about the Fast and the Furious. Subscribe to this channel for more content like this and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_GrabBird. Until next time though, thanks for watching.